What is up, guys? This is PVM Vertigo, and welcome back to another episode of Kerbal Space Program. And today, I greet you with a nice little moon mission with quite the odd payload. So, okay, here's the backstory to this. I was looking for a nice little money-making contract in the mission center or whatever, and it said that you can land a surface base on the moon. And we have not yet made a surface base on the moon, so I accepted it. And basically this led to a culmination of thoughts on, all the moon bases I made in the past, not on YouTube videos, but just for fun. And it led me to believe that the moon does not it's not urbanized enough. So I decided through about 5 minutes of intense processing that we should send a skyscraper to the moon. And so that's what we're doing. We're using a few 3.5 meter parts. We're going to launch up in orbit, and it's not just a hollow skyscraper. It does have a Kerbodyne, whatever kind of engine, the 2000 whatever thrust on it. It's got a big fuel tank in there, and I'd say it has around 2,000 to 3,000 meters per second delta V, if I remember correctly. At this point, I did this a few days ago. I'm just voicing it over, but nevertheless, we get this thing up in orbit fairly easily, and the only reason I can control this thing without it massively flipping out of control is because I have 3 little reaction wheel modules in there somewhere. I mean, you obviously can't see it because it's a big box, it's a skyscraper, but it actually does function as a real skyscraper would, because it does have a research lab. You could call that a skyscraper office, so they do lots of work in there. You can't access it, of course, because it is a skyscraper and you can't click through it, but there's also a habitation module in there, so that's where people kind of live in the skyscraper. There's a pilot's module. They can't exactly see out of the skyscraper, but that's another place for people to kind of sit and lay around. And then there's the actual engine, which is not used in the skyscraper and is only you can see where, if I turn my camera a little bit, one of these, or later on, you'll see that there's a little bit of a jagged edge to make the skyscraper look a little bit I don't know, a bit more detailed, a bit more contoured. And that's where the fuel tank is expanded, and the rest of the thing is actually only 2.5 meters wide. The bottom part, however, is 3.5 meters wide, so I need that extra space to accommodate for the engine and its big fuel tank. And where the fuel tank ends is where the contour happens, where it all slims down into the actual habitation and usable module. So we're coming up onto the moon. We're getting ready to kind of find a place to land this thing. You can see what I'm talking about there, how there's enough space and then it kind of shifts off to the side. And I counteracted that instability with an offset of the engine, so it remains pretty stable, even though it is not nearly as symmetrical as I wanted it to be. So we get down into a nice little orbit here. It took us 5 seconds because the engine it has high thrust, so it doesn't take us that long to get into an orbit. But we don't just want to get into orbit with a skyscraper. We do not need a flying skyscraper. Skyscraper is not good when it is flying. What it needs to do is it needs to land in a semi-flat area. I mean, to some extent we can balance it with SAS we have included, but we want to be on somewhat of a flat area. So I set up a maneuver node, but I ended up actually accidentally triggering it early because I shift-tabbed to respond to a message to my friend, and it started up the engine a little bit, and now I gotta land a little bit closer to a little bit before where I originally wanted to land, but that's okay because we're gonna land in the middle of a big crater, so it means it's already gonna be slightly flatter. And then we're also gonna land kind of over here in this nice little depression here. It's fine, just freaking flying skyscraper just coming through, and right there you can see the contour. Right there you can see it clearly, and we're just coming down onto the ground as cautiously as possible. I do not want to break anything on this thing. This thing costs $200,000 to put into space. I am not going to have to send another one, or else we will be actually not really profiting. We'll kind of just be going even. Shouldn't be too bad, but I'd rather profit. Come on, who doesn't want to profit? So we're just kind of floating in space. Oh, we touched down. Ooh. Oh gosh, it's tilting a little bit. It's tilting forwards a little bit too much. It is going off balance. I'm trying to pull it straight backwards. I have SAS on. If I didn't have that on, we'd probably be wrecked by now. But we have, well, oh, now we're going backwards. You can tell that we're moving because the stability thing. Oh, now we're going to the side. There we go. So this is obviously not the greatest flat ground, but it is flatter than pretty much everywhere else we've landed on the moon in previous experiences. We probably could have attached landing legs, but I want this thing to look, I want it to look a little bit more modern. So yeah, there we go. We have a building on the moon, a skyscraper on the moon. It's got 2 antennae, you know, for transmitting things like that data there. Look at all that science. So yeah, this mission was a success financially and scientifically. Let's move on to the next launch. And here we are with quite the wide rocket. It doesn't really look that tall, but is in fact very, very tall. Thing's got 10,000 meters per second delta V armed on it. And what it's doing is it's going back to Duna. Yes, I said that right. We are going back to Duna. Why, you may ask? Well, we have to do some gravimetric scans of Duna. Just for, I didn't want to do it, but I'm going to try to do it. Because it's 206 science each for each place analyzed on Duna. So, and there's also a boost at the end when you finish all of them. So that's like, what, 600 science from doing the gravimetric scans, plus the actual data of the scans. That's like 800 science total from doing as much science as you can, and then plus the 200 at the end. That's like 1,000 science. So, where I'm getting at is that it's a lot of science, and that's going to get us close to the end of the tech tree. And that'll leave us with the Jewel mission, which will be, well, pretty much the last little step. But we're getting up into orbit here. We've ditched our 2 3.5 meter stages, the booster rocket and the central core. We're on to a standard 2.5 meter skipper engine. We're going to boost this up into a nice high orbit so we can do a time warp. Because we are going to have to time warp a little bit. We're not going to do it all in this orbit. We're probably going to switch over to the warp machine spacecraft, or also known as a plane. Because we need to get the right angle to do this. So after we get into orbit, we're gonna correct it because I didn't want to get our angle right before and then just suddenly like fail the launch or something, or launch bad. I'd rather just have the warp machine handle it. So we're gonna switch over to that right now. And there it is, the warp machine with all of its crazy viewpoints because it's in a hangar. This is obviously using age-old technology. We built this thing, I don't even know what episode that was, but it was a long time ago. So yeah, it does its job. Long story short, it gets us on the right angle. We make a maneuver, mostly prograde, no real other adjustments. And we just start burning the skipper engine. It takes us a little bit, but that's okay, because in this like little minute we have here, I'll tell you what this mission's all about. So what we have to do is we have to get that high density, mostly fuel core to get to Duna and land on 2 different spots for gravimetric scans. It also has to fly over 11,000 meters over like a polar ice cap at Duna. So we're gonna have to approach this thing at kind of an inclined plane. Not too much inclination because we want to be able to adjust it later, but we want to make sure that we can approach it at the minimum amount of delta V. So we want to get a nice like 45-degree angle going so that we can wait until it comes below us and then we can descend through the aerial zone and then hopefully twist out and land at one of the sites, maybe 2 of the sites. It's okay if we can only land at one of the sites and grab that science, because that'll be enough for one of the nodes. But the real goal, obviously, is to do this all in one mission. So that's what we're hoping to do. It is possible, because the landing sites are so close together, we could probably just hop on over with like maybe minimal delta V, like 300 meters per second, maybe 500 meters per second. And the top lander stage has like 3,000, so it is definitely possible. It's going to be a pretty interesting mission. So we're just going to get onto this correction burn here. Gonna burn 5 meters per second. It's all the difference. We're gonna get within a few 100,000 meters per, or yeah, meters. At least in the Kerbal map. But when we actually get there, it probably is gonna be off. Because Kerbal map does something like that. I don't even know. But nevertheless, the floating in space shall come to a stop soon. Because we're gonna be at Duna, preparing for our landing. Hooray, we're here, and we are at a 45-degree angle, just as I said. It's actually more like, I don't know, 225 or something like that. Because I don't think we're orbiting the right direction. No, we're orbiting clockwise instead of counterclockwise. But that is fine, because that means we'll reach our destination even faster and have a better slowing rate, I think. I think the atmosphere works like that, I'm not really sure. But if I'm not right, just don't tell me about that, because that'll be that could be the case. So we're setting up our retrograde burn here. We're going a little bit past it. That's okay. But it's a rough point to burn from. So we are going to start the burn. I kind of doubted myself here. I was like, is this really retrograde? And then I figured out, oh yeah, it is. It just was moving at a weird way because I'm not used to burning at an angle that's not equatorial. Because let's be honest, most of my orbits are equatorial unless I'm doing like these survey missions or whatever. So yeah, this has been one of the first, actually. Yeah, this is like the first survey mission since the sub 10 era of episodes, like episode 7, 8, and 9. I think I did a moon mission with surveys around there. So this has been the first one in a while. And I'm not exactly the greatest at surveys, so this could be pretty interesting. As you can see, we have a lot lower thrust to weight ratio than that Skyscraper did, because we only have what, 6-7 engines in the bottom that are 1.25 instead of one massive 2,600 or however many thrust units it has. So yeah, this thing is not going to move nearly as fast as the Skyscraper, but it is going to be more efficient. We have 3,000 something meters per second delta V with lots of science material and parachutes aboard, so this is going to be good. And we're just floating around waiting for opportunity here. And bam, opportunity strikes. We start making our inclination change here. We're going to aim for the upper little node there. You can see that that's the aerial one, so we have to fly above it. And we also have to fly in space, because the gravimetric scan does not work in the atmosphere. So we're going to have to fly above the atmosphere, but also fly precise enough to get near that thing. It's going to be a little bit of a challenge. You can see I'm getting pretty vertical here on my orbit. Just making some adjustments. Going to do a retrograde adjustment so I can more accurately measure where the heck I'm going. Using up a little bit too much delta V, but that's okay. I still got like 2,000 left, 1,500, something like that. So I'm trying to get this as close as possible. I'm getting my inclination changed again. I didn't make a maneuver node for this because it's actually more efficient to do an inclination change by yourself. Because the maneuver node, you can't point in one direction, you can't point in the same direction the entire time for stuff like this. So I'm going into a little bit of a time warp. We just did our visual survey there, and we're going to time warp past this, because this took quite an erroneous amount of time. It took a long time to get all this stuff set up. Try to get there as timely as we can. Oh my gosh, the music is going crazy, but that's okay, because it doesn't matter if the music's going crazy if we're going to Duna, right? So we're getting set up here. We're getting a braking burn going on, because we're going to be... Oh, no, we're not. I'm setting up my thing a little bit better. There we go. This should put us right on target if I'm correct. My parachutes deploy, I'm getting all set up. I'm fairly certain that this is going to be accurate. It came out of the warp, by the way. But I'm not exact. Oh, I'm going to overshoot a little bit. Okay, you're entering it, you're entering it. Oh, we're leaving, and we ran out of fuel. There's no other way to get there. Well, looks like we're not doing that survey today. Or the scans or whatever. Failure is sweet. But that's okay. Because that leaves us with something to do next episode. Even though we have failed this episode, we are going to come back with some sort of a new inventive design at Duna. Oh, and there it flips over in shame. But this spacecraft is pretty much done for. There's no way to get back home. There's no way to do the scan. We're going to have to send, not a rescue mission, but a second mission for this contract. Because this contract, as much as you would say it's not important, there's a lot of science at stake here. And we can't exactly afford to pay the refund either. So, be prepared for a lot of more Duna excursions coming up on the next episode of Kerbal Space Program. So stay tuned for that. So, we're going to avoid all this failure for a little bit. We're going to avoid the little bit of a surface error we had and go to the tech tree. Because we did do one scan, and one scan is enough to get us a node, and we got metamaterials. Nice. So that ends this episode of Kerbal Space Program. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe. Stay tuned for more Kerbal Space Program episodes coming up on the end of the series here, but that is just fine. We still have tons of stuff to do, and after the end of the series I might still keep going with it. Maybe not in this little career series, but definitely more Kerbal Space Programs coming up soon. Stay tuned. This is PVM Vertigo. Peace out.